Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale. On this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, I want to show you how I make my bagels. Now I've had a lot of you request these over the years. I think especially since I've done like pretzels and croissants. I guess this was like the next, the only natural way to go is to show you how to make bagels. And I'm also really thrilled to share this with you because if you live in a part of the world where you've never had a bagel or you've seen them on TV or whatever, now you can make them from scratch. I know in Italy we don't have bagels, but I love them and I hope that you enjoy my recipe as well. The ingredients you'll need to make the bagels are very, very few to make the dough. All you need is some bread flour, sugar, salt, warm water, and you'll need additional sugar and some active dry yeast. Now my water is nice and warm at about 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to add my little bit of yeast and my sugar, and I'm just going to let that sit aside until it becomes all foamy and the yeast activates. But I also wanted to just talk to you a little bit about bread flour because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about whether or not you can substitute all-purpose flour, and you can use all-purpose flour, but what you have to remember is that bread flour has a higher content of gluten, and therefore it's going to provide that really chewy texture that bagels are known for. So for me personally, bread flour is interchangeable. I mean, you can do all-purpose flour or bread flour, but I do lean more on the bread flour because I just really enjoy that chewy bagel texture. So if you want that classic texture, you need to use bread flour. If it doesn't matter to you, you can use either one. So I hope that helps. Okay, I'm just going to add these to my standing mixer, and I'm just going to wait until my yeast is activated. As you can see, the yeast has gotten nice and foamy. That's a good sign. Good things are going to happen. And now I'm just going to add my water, my yeast, and sugar mixture to my bowl. Now, before I turn this on, because it's going to get loud, you need to mix this for about 8 minutes. You need to make sure that that gluten is developed. If you don't have a standing mixer and you do it by hand, you're most likely going to have to knead it for about 25 minutes to achieve the same result. So you can do it by hand. It's just going to take a whole lot longer than 8 minutes. So keep that in mind. I'm going to let this go for a while, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. And I also just oiled the same bowl that I had the flour in with some veg oil so that it's ready for it when it is ready to go in. Perfect. So if you have a standing mixer like mine, I just keep it on the number 2 the entire 8 minutes, and it works out perfect every single time. I love this dough. It really is wonderful. It's foolproof. Like once you make it once and you work with it once, you'll understand like you can make different sizes of bagels. It's just wonderful. I don't know if you can tell, but you see how it's leaving marks behind? You see it's tacky? That's really important. You don't want your dough to be really dry. You want it to be quite tacky. Otherwise, it won't work. Otherwise, when you try to roll your bagels, it just, trust me, it just won't work. So make sure that, it's nice and tacky. And I just like to take whatever leftover oil and just tap it around the top and the sides. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with some plastic wrap, and I need to put it somewhere to rise. You don't want this to rise until it's doubled, because if it rises until it's doubled, the dough becomes too soft to work with. So you want it until it's about 1.5 times the size that it is now. So this usually takes about an hour and 10 minutes or so. I'm going to do that, and then we'll start shaping them. My dough looks perfect. This is what you want it to look like. Now before I handle it, you want to get a large pot. I like to use my Big Dutch oven for this. I add some water to it and I add some honey. Now what I've done, this was already warm, so what I need to do now is bring this up to a boil, and I also have my oven preheated to 425, and you want to place one of your oven racks in the upper 2/3 of your oven, because if you bake these at the very lowest bottom rack, the bottoms will burn. Middle rack, I still feel like the bottom gets a little bit dark, but if you place this on the upper 2/3 rack of the oven, then they just get beautiful, beautiful color. And I've got a large baking sheet with some parchment paper. You might want to do 2 baking sheets, but I'm doing 8 bagels today out of this mixture, so it's going to work out perfectly. Now you'll notice there's no flour anywhere near me, and that's because you need your dough to be quite tacky when you go ahead and roll these. So, and you don't want to add any if you can help it, you don't want to add flour to this, is all I'm saying. So what I also have here is a clean kitchen towel that's been dampened. And now out of this, I am going to get 8 bagels. You can get a scale out if you want to and measure them to make sure they're perfect, but if you and I know each other well, which I like to think we do, then you know that I'm not about that life. I don't really mind if some are bigger than others. To me, that's kind of the beauty of home cooking, is to just, I don't like that feeling of having everything being so perfect and looking like a machine did it, because that's not how I operate in my real life, so I don't want to operate that way just on camera. I like things to be homemade and carefree and easy. And so now you need to shape these, which is very easy, but I'm going to show you. You take your piece of dough, you kind of roll it like this, sort of, that's kind of like a little, you can kind of cup it with your hand. Then on a clean work surface, you take it and you roll and roll and roll and roll. Hear that? And you're going to have no seam. So you just need to roll that between the palm of your hand. If you look up close, my thumb and my pinky keep it in its shape. See how my thumb and my pinky never ever move? I mean, I don't spread them out or anything. That keeps the shape. You see that? That is looking perfect. If it's got just a little bit of a seam underneath, that's fine. But what you don't want is to have like it break apart. So this is just about where I want it, and because we didn't add any flour, it's not rolling around all over the place. So I've got one down. I'm going to place it on my baking sheet, and as I place them on there, I'm going to just get my clean kitchen towel and just cover it, and I'm just going to continue to roll the rest. So now that you have these all rolled out, you need to form them. You need to shape them into bagels. And here's how you do it. You take your 2 index fingers, or as my nonna would call them, my I told you so fingers. You take your one finger, you poke it into the center to make a hole like that, and then you stretch it, you fit your other finger in there, and then you roll. And I count to about 15, and that should be perfect. And then what you do is you place it down on your baking sheet, and then you give it a little flat. You know, you just kind of flatten it a little bit with the palm of your hand. And I'm going to continue to do this to all of them. I'm going to cover them. I'm going to keep them covered with my damp kitchen towel, and I'm going to keep it that way until my water is up to a rolling boil. So probably another 10 minutes or so of them resting, and then we're in business. My water and honey mixture is to a boil. I'm going to lower this now to about medium low. I want it to be about a simmer, not a rolling boil. These have only been resting for several minutes, and all I'm going to do now, and this is what I want you to keep in mind, I'm going to do 4 at a time, and I like to put them in there top side up and leave them in there for 1 minute, then flip them, let them cook for 1 minute on the other side, so a total of 2 minutes per batch, and then I'm going to put them back onto the same baking sheet that's been lined with parchment paper. So I'm just going to keep an eye on these, and I'll show you what they look like when they come out. These are all ready. I've just let them sit here for a few minutes so that the water kind of absorbs. Also, when I put them back onto my baking sheet, I flip them so that they're top side up, if you will, because it just look better. Now, what I'm going to do, what I have here is an egg white that I've beaten with a little bit of water to make an egg white wash. And I just like to brush the tops with these. 1, because they give you a beautiful color, but 2, because if you're going to use any toppings, like I'm going to do a couple with some poppy seeds and a couple using some sesame seeds, you need to make sure that they stick, really. So this kind of adds like a layer of edible glue, if you will, for my toppings. If you want to add like onion flakes or garlic flakes to this, my suggestion would be to wait until these are halfway cooked through, because they do tend to burn if you put them on for the full 20 minutes of baking. I've tried and they just burn, but the poppy seeds and the sesame seeds don't. So I'm going to do 2 with sesame seeds because sesame seed bagels are my favorite. So I'm going to do 2 with those, and then I'm going to do 2 with poppy seed bagels because Joe loves poppy seed bagels and because they're delicious and I like variety in my life. And then all I need to do is pop these into the oven for 20 minutes. And I like to make sure to rotate the baking sheet halfway through to ensure even baking, even coloring, all that fun stuff. And then I'm gonna let them cool pretty much completely on a wire rack, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. My bagels were in the oven for right around 20 minutes. I have let them cool completely on my wire rack, and I just can't help but beam because of how beautiful they look. Obviously, you want to split them open, you want to toast them, you want to smear them with whatever your heart desires, but I did cut one open so that you can see sort of how dense and beautiful they look. Have to do it. They're so chewy. They've got that classic like sheen, and there's such a pull with these when it comes to the chewiness. I don't know if I can really describe it. You just have to try them. They're not that difficult to make. They don't take hours and hours of rising. Very easy technique. You know, makes for an amazing bagel that I know you're gonna love. Go to laurainthekitchen.com to get the written recipe. I hope you enjoyed spending time with me. I'm about to go toast this up and put some cream cheese on it. I'll see you next time. Bye.